Well, the England result didn't exactly go to plan. It was nice to have Championship football back over the weekend, and in today's video we will be digesting all of those Championship results with a return for the Championship roundup. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Leave your comments in the comments down below. What did you make of England and the Championship football we had going on over the weekend? Of course, we do have another game which is going on tonight, but we've still got 11 matches to go ahead and talk through. If you do go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. 200 likes would be massively appreciated. But without any further ado, let's jump into this one. And starting out at Ewood Park, what a result for Preston North then. 4-1 against Blackburn. I didn't see this result coming whatsoever. In my preview to it, I was fancying Blackburn. I think that was really solidified when I saw the team sheets come out. It's not just been Preston, but loads of casualties across the Championship, it would seem, over these last few weeks in terms of players picking up little knocks here and there when the football's actually not been taking place. But fabulous result in the end, and I think some of the best football we've played since Ryan Lowe has come in. That forward three, I thought, worked brilliantly together. Ched Evans rolling back the years up front, and then with Daniel Johnson and Ben Woodburn playing off him, the interplay between them was absolutely fantastic, and Blackburn just couldn't live with that. Apart from a few spells earlier on in this match and in that second half when they got that goal back, Blackburn were absolutely atrocious throughout this one, and the fact that the Rovers fans had that performance against Burnley to sit on over the course of that entire international break, for them to come back with a performance like this against a pretty depleted Preston side, really wasn't a good look for them. But some fantastic goals scored by Preston. Woodburn opening the scoring, Ched Evans with a double, and then my pick of the goals probably being that Ben Whiteman one, that cheeky flick from Daniel Johnson, who really did look back to his best in this one. So yeah, Blackburn way off the pace. Preston, I mean, we're suddenly in contention for the top 6 now with this recent run of results. Great stuff from us. Next then to Rotherham up against Bristol City. It was Bristol City returning to Championship action with all 3 points. We spoke about the form coming into this one, obviously prior and before the international break. Bristol City had hit a little bit of a roadblock in terms of their creative numbers were down a little bit in front of goal, didn't seem to be quite as prolific, but a good start for this one with that Harding own goal, and that sort of summed up Rotherham's afternoon. There were moments in which they put Bristol City under a little bit of pressure. I think had 16 shots in the end, so did have some of those openings, but from a defensive standpoint, Rotherham were way off the pace in this one. The second Bristol City goal, another example of really some quite sloppy and slack defending, and obviously Pring wrapped things up for them in the second half. Looked like Rotherham may threaten to get back into it when they did tie it back up at 1-1, but in the end Bristol City had that little bit more clinical edge about them. I don't think it was the peak of Bristol City perhaps that we've seen from them so far this season, but to get back to winning ways can't be underestimated, and for Rotherham just seemed to be going through the gears a little bit, and I think there was a little bit of that in the Championship as a whole this weekend, sort of getting that rust off, particularly from a defensive standpoint. We had Reading beating Coventry by 1-0. Reading, prior to the international break, just started to lose a little bit of steam. I know they had that result against Hull as the immediate result before this one, but they were starting to have a little bit of a slide off, and so the break in play might have actually been quite useful for them to go ahead and work on a few things, and I thought that probably showed throughout this one. Coventry, not a great time to have that break, as they'd started to really build up a little bit of momentum, and that was just completely halted in this game. Coming into it, it did feel as if the sort of game which would be quite reliant on whoever scored that first goal was likely to go on and get a result. That's been the case with a lot of Coventry matches so far this season, whether that's been them on the winning or losing side, a lot of that time it has been by a sort of slim 1-goal margin, and in the end they were sort of caught out somewhat against the run of play in that second half with how things had started to pan out. But Mbengui with the goal in the end, and seemingly so a fantastic performance overall. Reading from that point onwards have taken the lead, managed the game really well as well, and just didn't allow Coventry to get back up into it. So not the best from Coventry, but a good way for Reading to get back after the international break. After that, we then had Blackpool playing at a goalless draw with Birmingham at Bloomfield Road, a game that lacked a sort of spark and intensity in the final third. It would seem just one shot on target between both sides across the full 90 minutes, albeit Birmingham did have 2 goals ruled out and also hit the post, which I think probably tells the tale of who were the more adventurous side in the final third and perhaps more unlucky not to have gone on and win this one. Blackpool, another one of those sides who seemingly have been hit with something over this international break, even more more injuries have gone ahead and accumulated up, and it seemed as if Appleton was intent on coaching a sort of more resilient side to go ahead and grind out a result for this one, perhaps after the run of results they'd had prior to the international break. Just wanted to get something on the board. You know, had Blackpool fallen behind quite early on in this one, we spoke previously about how the crowd there potentially could have turned quite quickly. Birmingham just lacking that little bit of quality in the final third maybe, but albeit they did get into some pretty good positions, just couldn't capitalise on them. After that to the Riverside and for Middlesbrough, who pretty much picked up from where they left off before the international break with all 3 points against Luton in this one. Did have to fight from back behind. It was Clark with the opener for the away side. Cracking strike from outside the box which caught the goalkeeper out, but from that point onwards it seemed like all of the momentum was with this Middlesbrough side, and fair play to how they went ahead and reacted to having gone a goal behind. Giles and Akpom with that link up for the equaliser, one of the best crosses from those deeper positions in the Championship in Giles, and to put it on the plate for a striker who's as in form as Akpom at the moment, that was always going to result in a goal. Second half, Middlesbrough also knocking on the door for the majority of this one, have a lot of the momentum. They were boosted by the fact that Luton went down to 10 men with that Bell red card, and from that point onwards didn't really offer all too much of a goal threat or on counters and things like that, and it would be a 91st minute winner for Matt Crooks and Middlesbrough. So yeah, Middlesbrough, like I said before, I tipped them for the top 6 under Michael Carrick. I fancy their chances come the end of the season. Luton, it will probably take us a few more game weeks to properly suss out how they're going to be looking long term under Rob Edwards, and this we probably can't read all too much into it because it is, you know, his first game in charge and they were down to 10 men at a tough place like the Riverside. After that too then, for Millwall playing at a 1-1 draw with Wigan, I did manage to get this prediction spot on, and quite similar to what we were saying about Luton with Rob Edwards, probably a little bit too soon to be drawing any major conclusions about how good of a coach Torre is going to be based on this first 90 minutes, but from a few of the glimpses that I did see, looked like some decent passages of play for Wigan throughout this one, and signs of encouragement of things to come perhaps going forward. It was the away side who took the lead, a little bit of a scrappy goal from Millwall's point of view. It was Lonker who had already dived for the first shot, couldn't quite reconfigure his feet, and Keane managed to follow it in at the second time of asking. Not long after that, Millwall did manage to get back into things. Zian Fleming, who's been a player that's got them out of so many situations so far this season, producing that moment of magic, and then in the second half the home side just didn't quite have that endeavour to go on and kill this game off, and a well-deserved point I thought for Wigan in the end. So Wigan outside the bottom 3, 24 points after 22 matches. If they carry on with that sort of momentum that they showcased in this one, who knows, maybe it will be a bit more of a smoother second half of the season than I'd originally predicted. Next then to Bramall Lane, it was Sheffield United getting the better of Huddersfield 1-0 in the end. Ilman Ndiaye being the creator for Billy Sharp. Brilliant passage of playing Sharp with that cheeky dink over the keeper to make it 1-0 to the Blades. Sheffield United probably would have liked to have killed the game off in the second half, but that second goal just didn't quite come for them, but 3 points nonetheless. From a Huddersfield perspective, listen, their Championship survival bid this season ultimately won't rely on, you know, games away at Sheffield United. It'll be against the teams up and amongst them, but once again that lack of quality in the final third probably showing through for this one. They had 4 shots overall throughout this one, just the one of them being on target in the end. And looking at their fixtures from now to up until Christmas, it's not the easiest run that Huddersfield have. To have come back to Championship action with that game against Sheffield United and then back-to-back games against Watford and Preston, not the easiest run for a Huddersfield side who are in desperate need of picking up something at this point in time in terms of any points on the board. But good win there for Sheffield United. Ilman Ndiaye, he's just a man, isn't he? Next then we had Stoke playing at a 2-2 draw with Cardiff. I did fancy this one to end level, but I had it down as a goalless draw. In the end, we were treated to 4 goals in this one. Cardiff taking the lead through Ryan Wintle, but a good fight back from Stoke in that first half. Throughout this season, all of us have probably been quite critical of the Stoke forwards and how wasteful they've actually been throughout this season, but this was an example of just how good they can actually be. Tyrese Campbell with a fine finish to make it 1-1, and then Delap getting on the score sheet for that second one, albeit there was an error of fortune about that Delap goal with that massive deflection it took in the build-up to it, but a goal nonetheless, and Stoke had that lead going into half-time. Credit to Cardiff because they did manage to build up up some momentum in that second half. You know, how many times this season have we seen Cardiff fall behind in the match and just not have that attacking quality or that tactical nous to go on and put the opposition under a little bit of pressure? They did do that in this game. Callum Robinson got that equaliser and in the end probably looked like the more likely side to go on and win this game. Stoke before that did have some pretty big penalty decisions waved away when they were 2-1 up. You know, had they scored the third goal, that would have probably killed this one off, but such is the nature of Championship referees, I suppose, and in the end we were treated to that 2-2 draw. So Stoke and Cardiff fans, be interested to get your verdict on this one down below. Swansea up against Norwich was such a bizarre game in the end. Norwich taking the lead after 58 seconds. It was a disastrous start from the home side. That corner swung in, Pookie at the back post in the right position, but from that point onwards this one was all Swansea really. Norwich were quite happy to sit off them, let Swansea have a lot of the ball, and to be fair to Swansea, there were times when they worked it into decent areas, but how many times we've said it about them under Russell Martin, just missing that little bit of a killer instinct, that final pass, someone like a Joel Perreault to come up with that moment of magic that he would do so often last season. For whatever reason, just hasn't got going for this year. In the second half, Norwich offered virtually nothing. I mean, they didn't even register a single shot throughout that second 45 minutes as Swansea continued to push for that equaliser, but just nothing would go in. It's a weird one with Norwich at the moment because more performances like this, it's not sort of great to watch on the eye, but 3 points away at a place like Swansea certainly isn't to be sniffed at. So I do get the sense of quite a few sort of conflicting thoughts in that Norwich camp at the moment. For Swansea, just a bit of a bad day at the office really, conceding early on in the manner of which they did, and to have as much as the ball as they did and to have not got anything over the line is a real frustrating one. Burnley pretty much picked up from where they left off with a convincing 3-0 win over QPR. Goodmanson with that early free kick, Maatsen making it 2-0 before half time. Bit more of a resurgence from QPR in that second half, but a defensive blunder meant that Teller got in to make it 3, and at that point QPR were never getting back into it. So convincing stuff from Burnley. I had them down as my title favourites in that updated prediction video that I did. I think with more performances like this, that'll only go on and solidify that thought process really. Coming into this game, we weren't sure which version of QPR we'd get because they, you know, still had the interim manager in charge of this one, the whole manager debacle going on over the international break. Well, since all of that has gone on, they have gone ahead and just announced the appointment of Neil Critchley. This one had been rumoured. It was the obvious link with Critchley, you know, leaving Aston Villa with Steven Gerrard, previously working in the Championship with Blackpool as well. Similar sort of profile to Mick Beale as well, and with the squad of players they've got, I think a decent hire, all things considered. We know we did have that little bit of a rumour popping up with Gareth Ainsworth as well, but I quite like the look of this one. Did a fantastic job over the years at Blackpool getting them promoted, how we had them really punching above their weight for last season as well, and long term I think he's a solid appointment for QPR, and very interested that his first game in charge of them will be away at North End next weekend, which I'll be at. And then finishing it off with Watford playing out a goalless draw with Hull. Not the best game we had in the Championship over the weekend. First half especially of this one was a little bit of a dull affair, not much creativity between either side. João Pedro probably having the best chance, but that was well saved. Into the second half, a little bit more intensity from Watford in terms of some of the chances they had, but Hull very much still had them at bay. Their best chance in that second half probably coming through Raymond I, who had a little bit of a howler with his misplaced attempt towards the end of this one, and ultimately finishing as a goalless draw. Decent point for Hull on the road there. Watford obviously not quite at full strength, with Sarr still not back in the picture, which was a disappointment from their point of view, but goalless draw, frustrating one for Watford really. But guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Obviously we do have a game going on in the Championship tonight as well. If you want to see my prediction for that one, make sure to head on over to the prediction video which we released last week for my preview for that game. Other than that, that will wrap it up for today's video. If you did go on to enjoy, do leave a like and do stick around for some regular Championship content. And I'll see you all in the next one.